Hello and welcome into the KE Report. I'm your host, Shad Markwitz, and we're getting an update today from Dolly Varden Silver, traded on the TSX.V under the ticker DV and on the OTCQX under the ticker DOLLF. And we're joined today with the president and CEO of Dolly Varden Silver, Shawn Khunkhun. And Shawn, it's great getting you back on the show for an update on Dolly Varden. We were just looking at it. Last time we had you on was kind of towards the tail end of last year, but I thought it might be nice, just as a jumping off point, to just discuss what the exploration team did in your 2023 field program and exploration program, just to encapsulate the drilling and the good work that was done last year, because you had a lot of meters drilled and a lot of work done. Give us a quick overview of how things ended the year before we kick off what you're doing this year.
Absolutely, Shad. First of all, grateful to be on. And just to recap for any new listeners, Dolly Varden is a silver company. We're located in the Golden Triangle in Canada, in Northwest BC. And we do have in all categories, 64 million ounce silver resource and 1 million ounces of gold. So we are one of the highest grade silver companies and one of the strongest growth companies in the silver space. Company's grown from 40 million ounces silver to over 140 million ounces silver equivalent in recent years. And, that's a nice segue into what we accomplished in 2023 in terms of continuing growing that mineral inventory. And so, Shad, the big highlight from 2023 was the discovery of a new gold zone up at Homestake. And this is a theme that we're seeing in the Golden Triangle where silver projects, so famous mines like the Premier Mine, like the Eskay Creek deposit, like the Bruce Jack deposit, these started as silver discoveries or silver projects. And what they've turned into is some of the largest gold systems that are out there. And what we're seeing at Dolly Varden is the Wolf deposit, the Tobrit deposit that are in the silver-centric southern part of the land package. And, we're moving from a silver-dominant area to a silver gold to a gold system. So getting back to the big highlight last year was a new discovery outside of the resource where we drilled over 12 meters of 79 grams of gold.
Well, Shawn, when you look back at last year's program, you also had some other interesting step outs at the Wolf deposit, at the Kitsault vein near Tobrit. Maybe just to encapsulate some of that work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Wolf, and Wolf was an area where we were hunting for the next 50 million ounce silver deposit. We've got one on the property, which is Torbrit, and Wolf is demonstrating that it's got Torbrit-esque characteristics and size potential. So we continued to have success as we drilled to the southwest, and some of the big highlight holes were in the neighborhood of about 27 meters to 30 meters of 381 grams of silver up to 461 grams. So we're finding 25 to 30 meter wide, 380 to 450 gram per ton intercepts. So they're wide, they're high grade. And then as we move up to Homestake silver, we drilled 93 meters of 357 grams of silver equivalent. That was half silver and half gold. And so it was a very successful year. In addition to all the drilling success, we did a deal before year end where we got 100% interest of the big bulk copper gold porphyry. So it's an important geological feature in our land package. It is thought to be the feeder source to all the high-grade silver and gold mineralization on our 15-kilometer trend. And the deal terms, the markets have really turned in March. But if you go back to December, it was a very challenging time. And we found a company that was trading at just a few pennies a share that we made an offer where we offered the company about $200,000 worth of Dolly Varden stock, and were assigned 100% interest of this porphyry system. So it was a fantastic deal. It was an opportunity that the team has been monitoring for 4 years. We waited for the opportune moment. We stepped in and we cut a phenomenal deal for our shareholders.
Yeah, that was a solid acquisition, and it really complemented the other portion of the big bulk area that the company already had, that Dolly Varden already had. So it also is kind of smack in the middle of the Hecla property next door. So it's a compelling, not just because it's a heat source, but it's also a nice strategic position within a larger land package here between the two companies, between Dolly Varden and Hecla. So it's a compelling transaction that you completed, and it's going to be interesting to see some of the work from big bulk. But let's really bulk up here to 2024, Shawn. Let's look at the drill program for this year. You've got 25,000 meters planned, and it's kind of a 50-50 split you'd outlined in your press release between Homestake and the Dolly Varden silver side of the equation. So maybe break down some of the key areas of interest from this year's program.
So the goals this year are, and I want to sort of identify this in three buckets. So bucket number one is exploration and discovery. And in that first bucket, we started with 3 drill rigs on May 17th. So we've been out in the field 24 hours a day for almost a month. And we started, and the goal here is to find the next 50 million ounce silver deposit on the land package. And, I mentioned we have Tobrit. Now we're under the Wolf, but we're going into areas like Moose, Chance, Ace Galena, North Star, and we're hoping to show that our shareholders in the market that we've got multiple 50 million ounce silver deposits on this land position. We're also looking for our next 1 million ounce gold deposit. We've got one at Homestake already, and we're going to a target called Red Point. And we think Red Point's got the potential to be the next Homestake. So we've been focused for the first part of the program on the exploration, discovery, growth component. The other two components are, one of them is where the rigs are today. So all 3 rigs have converged to Wolf. And what we're trying to complete there is further expansion to the southwest and to the northeast of the vein. And in addition to that, we'd like to do the appropriate infill drilling to put Wolf into a new 43-101 resource estimate. And we're also doing something at Wolf we've never done before at Dolly Varden, which is directional drilling. And I'll just touch on that, Shad, for a second here. So when we go out and we have targets that are a few hundred meters below the surface, there is a chance that where we're trying to target that precision, that precise location, we could deviate from that target. What the directional drilling does is it hones in and it gets us precisely to that point. And why that's so important at Wolf is there is multiple structures that is bringing in the silver mineralization. And I really think this year's results are going to be able to incorporate all of those structures. And that should lead to better results and more precise targeting. And we're quite enthusiastic about that opportunity. But I think we're saving the best for last, which is in about a month we'll move the rigs up to Homestake and we'll get onto that new gold discovery, and we'll see how big that system is.
Well, and Shawn, I think this would be a nice opportunity just to highlight how on your team you have so much geological expertise that you're letting some of the folks chase their dream or chase their thesis, their scientific thesis, with some of these different drill programs. You've got Amanda looking at certain targets. You've got Rob looking at other targets. You've got a slew of technical advisors that have some other ideas. So maybe just speak to the bench strength and the knowledge of the geological team that's pursuing all these targets.
Well, I think it starts at the advisory level. We've got a technical committee at Dolly Varden that approves our exploration budgets. And the head of that technical committee is a gentleman by the name of Michael Henriksen. So Michael was with Newmont for a decade as their head structural geologist. And so, he's working for the biggest gold miner in the world. And, that pedigree, that experience is a real welcomed addition to the team at Dolly Varden. Michael's been with us for 2 years now. In addition to Michael on the technical committee, we have the world's fastest growing established silver miner, Hecla, who's a 15% shareholder. We have their vice president of exploration, Kurt Allen, who supports Michael on that technical committee. And, Kurt's got the luxury of multiple mines in multiple locations and all the years of experience. So Kurt is a wealth of knowledge and is another welcome addition to the team. And then the third member of the technical committee is my buddy Rob McLeod, who really knows the Golden Triangle, great geologist, extremely creative, been attributed with many discoveries, many company sales. And so that's at the technical level. In terms of boots on the ground, we've got a new young team in the field that is hungry for discovery, and they're supported by our exploration manager, Amanda Bennett, who was responsible for Wolf and many other, really groundbreaking ideas at Dolly Varden. Andrew Hamilton, senior geologist, senior resource geologist, and the 93 meters that we drilled at of 357 at Homestake Silver, I really attribute that to Andrew and many other incredible contributions. But the game ball and the MVP goes to our vice president of exploration, Rob Van Egmont. Rob has carried this whole exploration program over multiple years and, really was the lead catalyst for, taking all this information and all these wonderful people and really driving it to a place where we're getting deliverables, we're getting them safely, on time, on budget, and they've exceeded all of our expectations. And, they've really branded this company as a high grade, high discovery company. And, what the testament to that statement is, we are surrounded by some of the richest silver and gold mines in the world. And in both 2022 and 2023, the best drill results coming out of the Golden Triangle with Dolly Varden. And, it's a big act to follow, but we've got the money, we've got the support of shareholders, and we've got this team. And the most important thing, an extremely prospective property in some of the best rocks in the world. And so we're going out there and we're trying to make it a three-peat, and we'll see what happens. Let the drills be our friends.
Well, and Shawn, there's also an interesting idea we've discussed before, and I would love you to unpack it a little further here. You've got an interesting slide in your slide deck that talks about connecting the deposit. And there's been a thesis from the geological team that it's possible that all of these different deposit areas and targets that you've been drilling actually connect at depth, or maybe are part of a larger system. So maybe speak to that kind of larger blue sky potential here.
Oh, 100%. This is the most exciting idea at Dolly Varden, where what we're seeing here, what's coming to surface, these are just fractures on an axial plane, and essentially that this is all part of one monster feeder system. And, we've gone as far as bridging the gap to 300 meters up at Homestake. So we've taken two individual deposits, and now they're only 300 meters apart. And what's really interesting is if you start looking at how these deposits, what their dip is, and why previous explorers, and the best way for me to explain it is I'm looking at a pen that's in front of my eye right now, and I'm looking at this pen and it's just laying flat. Previous explorers tried to step out and extend, and they missed. But what they didn't realize is that pen is actually dipping. And so it's like, that pen is referring to the dip of the mineralization. And as we incorporated that predictable dip, and as we're seeing periodicity, a repeating pattern. So as we look at the project and we look at the similarities of the Kitsault vein, which is part of the Tobrit resource, and the Wolf deposit, and as we apply that understanding to new targets like Moose, like Chance, we'll let the results speak for themselves that are going to be coming out shortly. But if we've got this predictability pattern identified, and if it does translate into new discoveries and world-class drill results, That's a very, very, very significant breakthrough, and the implications to the 163 square kilometer project that is 100% owned are very significant.
Well, and another thing I think it'd be fun to address, Sean, is that because, like you mentioned in the onset, a lot of silver companies have inevitably found further areas of the deposit that lead into gold. You've got a really nice balance between silver and gold in this deposit. And when you look at it in strictly silver equivalent terms or flip it over to gold equivalent terms, it's impressive either way you look at it. Maybe just speak to the balance of the gold and silver because the name Dolly Varden Silver, there's also a lot of gold here. Maybe just speak to both metals.
So, on a heads up basis, we have 64 times more silver than we do gold. But under the current, call it 75-to-1 ratio, that's essentially 50-50, silver and gold. That's where we are right now. So we're finding 64 times more silver on the property than we are gold. But based on the current gold price or the current silver price, the way we look at this in terms of economic terms, it's a half silver, half gold project. Now, what differentiates us from our peers is most of our peers that have silver in their system will have, most of them, the majority, will be lucky to have 1/3 silver. And the other 2/3 are mainly base metals like lead, zinc, or copper. And I think what makes Dolly Varden a really attractive opportunity for a precious metals oriented investor, one that's looking specifically for silver exposure, is that when we talk about the 140 million plus ounces of silver that we have on the property, silver equivalent, we're not bringing in any base metals. That's 100% precious metals. It's 50% silver and 50% gold.
Yeah, I think that's such a strong statement because to your point, a lot of people, when they think of silver mining companies or silver exploration and development companies, it's really base metals companies parading around as a silver company, but they're really more lead and zinc focused, maybe a little copper in there, and then they have silver as a component. In this case, there's such a strong precious metals component between the silver and gold, not as much of the base metals. Maybe just speak to the leverage that can give investors and also speak to the jurisdiction diversification since so much of silver companies are in Latin America, the jurisdiction you're in has a lot of advantages as well, Sean.
Yeah, listen, 100%. It's all about location. You look at the number one silver producing nation in the world, Mexico. It's becoming increasingly difficult to operate there, having to secure water, having to secure an open pit permit. It's next to impossible under the current administration. And that's a new administration, so that's not changing anytime soon. So, I think what sets Dolly Varden apart is number one, where the project is located. But number two, and this is something that we haven't touched on yet, it's the grade. And if you look at our peers, average silver equivalent grade, and that's made up of the lead and made up of the zinc and made up of all these other things, it's sub 200 grams per ton. It's about 188 gram per ton silver EQ. Dolly Varden's silver equivalent grade is over 421 grams per ton. So what sets us apart is our size of our deposit, the location, and then the grade. And, to answer the first part of your question is, well, who cares if, the silver equivalent is a lot of silver and then gold? Well, the reason it's so important is if you look at silver, and if you look at what's happening in silver right now, what's driving the silver price is investment demand out of India and China. And if we talk about India, 35% of all silver that was acquired, the demand for it was India and solar. So that's a big market segment. Now, why is the Indian consumer buying silver? Well, they're buying it because gold has become too expensive, number one. So whether it's from a jewelry standpoint, investment standpoint, gold denominated in rupees is outpriced the Indian consumer, so they're turning to silver. And then on the solar side, you've got growing solar usage. And so that's putting a demand on silver. So, and what that means and where that's going is solar has gone from 3% of silver demand to 15 on its way to 50. And so when you have a lead deposit or a zinc deposit, those are not the cells that go into photovoltaics. So they just require silver. When that Indian consumer is looking for investment, they're looking to buy silver. They're not looking for lead or zinc. So, really, I think we need to look at the silver heads up numbers of companies. And there's a lot of companies that are dressing up themselves up as silver companies, and they really don't have a lot of silver. Most of them have 20 or 30% silver. It's just a byproduct.
Well, and Sean, in addition to the location being a great jurisdiction outside of Latin America, but in Canada with good rule of law, in addition to the high grade compared to other projects, much higher grades, and in addition to the size of the deposit and a nice balance with true leverage to precious metals, both gold and silver, I think one other interesting distinguishing point about Dolly Varden is just how tight the capital structure is with so many key stakeholders in there. It doesn't really leave a lot of float for retail investors. So it means a lot of these shares are in strong hands. Maybe just speak to the breakdown of some of the key strategic shareholders in the company.
Shad, it's like we share one mind. That's exactly where my head was going. In terms of that's the last thing to really touch on here is what is the foundation of any company is the cap structure and the shareholders, and having alignment and having shareholders that are committed, that understand duration, time horizon, and are here and to support the growth of a business and are not just speculators. So having people like billionaire investor Eric Sprott as a 10% shareholder, having Hecla Mining, Hecla's only interested in mineable ounces. They're here because they really celebrate how the company's been growing. And what validates that is the fact that they increased their stake in the company by 50% back in October. So Hecla is a 15% shareholder. Eric's a 10% shareholder. We've got 50% of the company in the hands of the institutional investor, including Fidelity, Sprott Asset Management, US Global, Delbrook, et cetera. And then we've got a corporate shareholder partner in Fury Gold Mines. Fury divested Homestake, and the idea there was we had these incredible high-grade silver mines in the southern part of the Golden Triangle, and then right adjacent to it was this gold deposit with a silver byproduct. We put the two together, and that's what created the new Dolly Varden. And so, yeah, no, I just think this is, for any investor, like the thing I'll leave you with is we are in the early stages of the next bull market in precious metals. Yes, silver has outperformed gold so far this year by a few percentage points. But as we move into the second phase of the bull market, silver will start outperforming gold. So, for example, gold's up around 20% this year, and so is silver. As we move forward, the next time gold makes a 20% move, silver will make a 60% move. And silver equities will further outperform physical silver. And the same outperformance that you see from silver to gold, you will see from silver equities. So if gold's up 20%, silver will be up 60%, silver mining stocks will be up, at least 300%.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting phase, the next phase of the bull market, and you want to be in stocks that have that leverage to the upside. So definitely appreciate you breaking down the value proposition in Dolly Varden. And for those that are following along and want to follow along with the news out of the company, definitely click on the link below this interview. It takes you right over to the company website directly to their news section. Sean, keep us posted as more news comes out from the drill bit, more assays come back in. We'll get you on for an exploration update, and looking forward to our next conversation.
Thanks so much, Chad.